We are Texas Transparency Project, where transparency perpetuates accountability. We are your source for local and state issues that affect each and every one of us, from our state legislature to the county commissioner's court, to school districts and city councils. Their actions affect all of us. Locally, rural farms are transitioning into suburban neighborhoods. Texas is growing. Property taxes are increasing. The future of Texas is being shaped. We offer data-driven and sourced information so you have the totality of information. Get involved, stay informed, and work with your neighbors. We are the Texas Transparency Project, where transparency perpetuates accountability.
Hello, Johnson County. Welcome to this episode of the Texas Transparency Project, where we pull back the curtain on government and local politics that impact our lives. I'm your host, Greg Cooper, and this is our second episode after our long, much-needed summer break. Just to remind everyone here at Texas Transparency Project, our goal is to facilitate long-format discussions to really dive into some of the complex topics that affect every citizen of Johnson County. Today, we're honored to host the Grandview Independent School District Superintendent, Mr. Kirby Basham. He's our first superintendent that we've been blessed enough to host. We've hosted school board trustees and other members in the school district space, but the first superintendent, so we're excited about that. We're going to discuss Grandview ISD, highlight some of Grandview ISD's successes, discuss some of their challenges, and look into the future of Grandview ISD. But most importantly, talk about the uniqueness and special qualities that make Grandview what it is and what it means to be a zebra. Before we introduce the superintendent of Grandview ISD, we want to make sure we recognize APOS Ranch and Outdoors. APOS Ranch and Outdoors is a trusted source for animal supply, feed, animal care, archery, and more. APOS Ranch and Outdoors follows a tradition of the APOS family of businesses founded by Mr. Fernando Rodriguez, where quality, customer service, and a commitment to improving the community come together. APOS' mission statement is to provide goods and services to their customers while creating a team approach to customer service and a commitment to continual improvement while actively supporting the community. APOS Ranch and Outdoors is located at 1501 North Main Street in Cleburne. Once again, that's 1501 North Main Street in Cleburne. APOS Ranch and Outdoors can be reached at phone number 817-666-1164. Once again, that's 817-666-1164. 1164. APOS Ranch and Outdoors serves all your Johnson County needs and beyond. Superintendent Basham, welcome to the Texas Transparency Project. Thanks for trusting us here to let you have a long discussion regarding Grandview ISD. And thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your decision to choose education as a career choice, and how you got to lead such a distinguished, prestigious ISD like Grandview.
Well, my mother was an educator. She was a special education educator for 30 years in Crowley ISD. She actually started off as a paraprofessional in Grandview and went back and got her degree and then became a teacher. I still tell people that she's 10 times the educator that I am. She had an amazing heart for kids, but she always told me, don't go into education. You don't want to grow up poor. And unfortunately, teachers didn't make a ton of money back in the day. And so I didn't. When I graduated from high school, I wasn't real sure what I was going to do. But I knew I enjoyed coaching and I enjoyed being around kids. I worked with kids with our youth group and coached a lot of summer league teams and things like that. Wound up getting into mortgage banking and wound up getting married. And then my dad passed away at an early age. He passed away at 56 years old. And I was like, you know what? Life is too short to not do what you want to do. And I want to be around kids. So I went and finished up my degree in a year, and then started coaching. Coached in Giddings, then I coached in Itasca for a while, and then I coached out in Grayford, and then I had the opportunity to come back to Grandview as the high school principal 15 years ago. And so I was the high school principal for 11 years, and then going into my fourth year as the superintendent.
So, thanks for serving. Public education is a tough job. It's a thankless job in a lot of ways, but it impacts the future of the children and the future leaders of our country. So, thank you very much for being in public education. Tough job. So, why Grandview ISD? What led you to Grandview ISD? And give us a little history of Grandview from its roots and its beginnings to where it is today.
Well, Grandview's been around for a while. It's been a farm and ranch community. It actually burned down. The city burned down in the early 1900s. The school used to be a 2-story building, and there's still those china plates that get painted on. Every once in a while, somebody will pass away, and they'll come, "Hey, this was in my grandmother's. We found this,"
Wow.
and they'll bring them up to us. So we've got several of those in our administration office. But Grandview's always been centered around just hardworking people. It hasn't grown a ton, and it's up until the last few years. When I was in school, we were a 2A school. I graduated in 1990, and that's basically the same size school that we are now. They bumped everybody up a few years ago when they stopped calling six-man football, and started calling it 1A, and we went from 2A to 3A, and everybody thought we grew. We just got reclassified, and so and we're still a 3A school, but we are fixing to grow if the demographic reports are right. But it's just a hardworking school with very good community support. We're very fortunate for generations. It's been a great school. When I came back, I told everybody my job was just to keep the school on the tracks, right? But I'm a firm believer that every decision you make in life is made out of either fear or love. Gabby Bernstein is a writer that says that. And for a long time when I came back as a zebra, I was trying not to screw it up, right? And so I was living out of fear. And then I realized I read that and I was like, you know what? I love this district. I want to try to make it better because I love it. And so now if you come in my office, there's a little neon sign that has love so I can tell my Gabby Bernstein story because I think that's very important. I love the kids at Grandview ISD. I love the community in Grandview ISD. I love being a zebra. Our son graduated 3 years ago, and he was a 4th-generation zebra. My family's been in that neck of the woods a very, very long time, and I'm very proud. You and I had a conversation pre-show and said that most people will say that, their district is great, and they might be right, but I'm definitely sure that Grandview is a great district, and I'm incredibly proud to serve as a superintendent there.
And I think they're lucky to have you. You and I have had some conversations leading up to this, and I'm very impressed with your vision and your approach to Grandview ISD and public education. And I think Grandview's lucky to have a superintendent like you. I really, really do. Since you've been in Grandview as a superintendent, what would you consider some of your successes and your proudest accomplishments? And you're a humble man, so feel free to relay some of the district's accomplishments in that question. I
love talking about two things. I love talking about me, and I love talking about Grandview ISD. So this is a very easy question for me. I think in Grandview, we adhere to the zebra standard. We try to teach our kids to do 3 things. So we want them to be accountable, we want them to be respectful, and we want them to work hard. And if they can do those 3 things, they're going to be successful in Grandview ISD. But more importantly, they're going to be successful in life. If they walk out, I always say that if they walk across the stage, our job is to obviously teach them the skills and the literature and the math that they need. But more importantly, it's to teach them to be good citizens and to teach them how to be successful in life. And if they can do those 3 skills, be accountable, be responsible, and work hard, that gives them a leg up on somebody that went to school somewhere else. And those are the values that we believe in. And those have helped us throughout the years to be successful in the academic realm, the extracurricular realm, and our students. One of my favorite things to do is to hear of our students that have gone on after they've graduated from Grandview and to see what they've become, whether that's going to be a doctor or whether they go to Harvard or whether they get a job right out of high school and go to work for John Deere. One of my favorite students we ever had, he came back and told me about the really great job that he got at John Deere, and I was incredibly proud of him. And I think that's something that we do a great job of supporting kids that are going to go to Texas A&M or they're going to go into the workforce. And I'm very proud of that. Something else I'm really proud of is if you look at our academics or our accountability, we do really well in that. And that's not something that we focus on. When I was the principal, one year we had a 95. So you get a letter grade like an A or a score, but you also get a number. And we got a 95, and it was the 5th highest of any school in Texas. When you do that, lots of people are going to call and want to go, hey, what's the silver bullet that you've got that you're doing, right? And when they call, I would say, we don't have that. It's not a particular curriculum. It's not a special program. We let our teachers teach the TEKS, and we love on our kids. And that's how you get results. And they would all go, God, I wish our administration would let us do that. You don't overthink this. You just keep it simple. And if you do that and you work hard, you're going to have success. Are there going to be hiccups? Yeah. Do we have warts? Do we have knuckleheads? 100%. But we teach our kids. We give our teachers the autonomy to teach. They teach to the TEKS. But I tell people, we had convocation on Monday. I told our staff, my job is to support you. Your job is to go support our kids and to teach our kids. And if you need something, you call me. I put my cell phone up on the screen, and every teacher in my district's got it. And they know they can text me, and I'll try to move heaven and earth to try to help them to get to where they're in a position to be able to support their kids, to be able to have our kids be successful. And that's been the process since I was in high school, walking the halls, and Harold Pinkerton was the superintendent, and he'd walk through lunch to check on us and see how we're doing. And that's what I do. Just try to make it about personal relationships and supporting our kids and supporting our teachers. And I know that doesn't sound flashy, but it's not.
Well, you talk about not focusing on certain specific things, but getting really good results. And Grandview does have really good results, and we'll talk about some of those in a few minutes. But I think that honestly goes back to your approach to leading out of love and not from a position of fear to mess it up. If we're too afraid, failure is nothing more than a life lesson on what doesn't work.
Sure.
And we should never be afraid of failure. We should always just look at it as a way to figure out what didn't work and reapproach it. And I think those two can definitely be correlated regarding how the successes are of Grandview based on your leadership style and how you're approaching that. And we talk about all the different things in different districts reaching out. Texas as a whole is pretty much in flux right now. There's a lot of changes going on in public education. There's a lot of changes going on in Texas. There's a lot of changes, growth, and kind of playing catch up here in Johnson County and basically the greater Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and beyond. What would you consider the current state of Grandview ISD? And looking forward, what are some of the challenges that Grandview is going to have to negotiate?
Well, I would say since I'm the superintendent, it's in the best shape it's ever been. So no,
that's that liking to talk about you, right?
Yeah, no. It is. Grandview ISD is it's in a good spot. I think it's been in a good spot for a while, and I think we do have challenges. The biggest challenge is just the unknown of growth. Everybody in Johnson County is talking about we're going to grow, we're going to grow, we're going to grow. There'll be a developer come through my office and say, hey, we're going to build 1,200 houses. And I immediately go, ooh, that's a lot. Where are we going to put all those kids? And then maybe it happens and then maybe it doesn't. But it's the unknown of what's going to happen. What's going to happen with the economy to drive the interest rates to drive new home sales or existing home sales. That's the biggest unknown, and that's the biggest concern that I have. That and air conditioners are the two things that keep me awake at night. I'm not worried about third grade test scores.
No.
I'm fortunate to be in that situation. I'm very, very aware that I'm very blessed to have a school board that I have and a community that I have, and the teaching staff that we have. But I'm very blessed. But I do worry about the growth. I do worry about what's going to happen. You mentioned it just a little bit with what's going on in education in general. That makes me a little nervous, just because it's unknown. I mean, everybody would be concerned about the unknown in their lives. But I do think we will be in a position to be prepared for growth. I think what we're wanting to do with this bond project that we'll talk about here in a little bit helps us to be in a position to absorb some growth before what I call exponential growth hits. Do I think Grandview's going to turn into Frisco? I don't. I mean, it possibly could, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen while I'm the superintendent, and it's probably not going to happen while I'm still alive. But I do think that we are going to have growth. I do think Johnson County is going to have growth, and that's okay. I'm not afraid of growth. I tell our teachers and I tell our community folks that the folks that move to Grandview, we want them to learn the Grandview way. We don't want to take their way. If they moved here for a reason, and if you talk to any realtor in town, probably any realtor in Johnson County, they'll tell you, hey, they're moving to Grandview, but they're moving to Grandview because of the schools. And I'm not trying to break my arm, patting myself on the back because of that. That's just the fact. And I think that's because of tradition, not because of me. My job is to make sure that we adhere to keeping Grandview Grandview. If you look at my job description, that's my job description, to keep Grandview Grandview and to teach our kids to adhere to those 3 Zebra standard principles. And if they do that, then we've succeeded.
And here again, I think you're doing a great job. You guys, by pretty much all measurables, especially if you combine them, you guys are pretty much head and shoulders at the top of Johnson County in those measurables. And at the same time, as stated before, you and I have had some discussions that you're not resting on those laurels. You continually are looking to other districts and how to improve. And I think that's a phenomenal thing. Too often and not, it's really, really easy for individuals to get stuck in their little bubble, their little echo chamber. And the worst that you find out about going outside and seeing how other people do stuff is you've wasted a little bit of time to find out you're doing everything the best you can. The best you find out is, hey, here's another way, another lane to improve. And it's really good to see that that you're open to that and you're considering how other districts are.
I am a thief, and I am honest about that. So I come from a coaching background. I was a coach, and I was a basketball coach for a while, and I would watch Bill Self at Kansas, very successful. And I didn't have a 6'10" center and a 6'8" power forward and 3 guards that were 6'5" or taller. I probably had a 6'1" center. But I would watch his games and go, hey, wait a second. I'd punch pause and rewind and go, I can probably do that with my team and adapt it to my team and how I can put those kids in a situation to be successful. And I was fortunate to win some games doing that. I treat this the same way. I challenge my teachers, hey, go watch other teachers in our district. It doesn't matter if you're teaching high school biology. You can go down and watch a 5th grade reading teacher, and good teaching is good teaching. You're going to learn something. May just be how she moves around the room. But I encourage them and I challenge them and I tell them, if you want to go do that, I'll come cover your class while you go do it if you need me to. Because I want you to learn, and you're always trying to put tools into your teacher toolbox. I do that the same way as the superintendent. We're part of a group that travels around the state 3 times a year and goes to different districts. And every time that we come back, we try to learn what great districts are doing. What's Keene doing? What's Canyon doing? What's Belleville doing? What's Prosper doing? We go to Prosper, and it's a huge district with thousands and thousands and thousands of kids. But there's something that they're doing that we can take away, that maybe we can tweak, that makes us just 1% better. And if we can try to get 1% better, eventually you get 100% better. And so there's a lot of schools in Johnson County that are doing a lot of great things. And there's a lot of people in Johnson County that are doing a lot of great things. But more importantly, there's a lot of people around the state. Now, again, are there knuckleheads? 100%. But there's a lot of folks that are doing a lot of great things in public education for the kids of Texas. And I think sometimes we get a bad rap about that. And that kind of bothers me, because we love on kids. I wouldn't be where I am today without public education. And I've got a lot of kids and can tell you a lot of stories about a lot of kids that are very successful because of public education, not just in Grandview ISD, but in other districts, because we do good work, and we sometimes get a bad rap about it. And that does bother me. But we do great work in Grandview, and I'm very, very proud of it.
And you should be, and you're right. And we all, me included, fall into the trap of kind of sort of an absolutist attitude: good, bad, right, wrong. And public education deserves a lot of grace in what goes on, especially the speed and rapidity that Austin is micromanaging and pushing down onto you guys. So and I'm guilty of that for sure.
And I'm not. Maybe I'm in the minority in superintendents, but I'll say this. I think there's a place for private schools. I think there's a place for homeschool. I think there's a place for charter school. I think not every kid is going to fit perfectly in Grandview ISD. I'm not naive to think that. Not every kid's going to fit perfect in a homeschool situation or a private school situation or a charter school. It doesn't matter. You find what's best for your child. I'm 100% behind that. And I know that we get a bad rap of public education, looks down our nose at homeschool or private school. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I don't. I think there is a definite place for that. I think those should be separate for the most part. I don't think that Grandview ISD should be competing with charter schools. I just don't. The parameters are different. But I do think that there's certainly a spot for charter schools.
Yeah. I homeschool my kids. My kids go to a homeschool co-op, and I get a lot of grief with some of the work I do with education on what you homeschool and go to a co-op. And the reason I go, no one's ever asked me, but the reason I go is I was not, and my wife was not raised with faith, and that's become very important to us. And my faith and my wife's faith is immature, and we've been blessed enough to find a place where we can supplement our immaturity in faith with education, and it works. We give up a lot because we don't have a lot of the same opportunities that public school offers, but we prioritize that. But there's 3 districts, and I won't lie, Grandview would be one of them, that I would be comfortable putting my children in public schools. 3 in Johnson County that I wouldn't have any concerns at whatsoever. But unfortunately for us, me and my wife being behind in our walk, we've chose to elevate that and then make some sacrifices. So it's good to hear that you say that you can understand and sympathize with some of the parents
100%
who struggle with that. And it's funny you talk about how you go out and you're a thief. I was in special operations, and they'll flat out say if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
No,
just don't get caught.
Yeah, don't get caught. Luckily, I'm in a situation where those superintendents are wanting to help you.
Yeah,
you know, and you call me, we'll help you do that, or we'll help you implement that. But if you're not trying to get better, you're going to get worse. Yeah, there's no doubt. It doesn't matter education or any profession.
Yeah. So we brought up a little bit about the bond here in a minute, and we're going to get into that. But before we do that, we're getting ready to come out of summer here. So everybody knows that kids go home for the summer. Most teachers go home. Tell us what the average ISD does during the summer, and how do they prepare for the challenges of the upcoming school year as we're winding that down, getting ready to start here.
Sure, I actually get to ask that question a lot. Hey, when do you go back? And I'm like, I work 12 months. I'm a 12-month employee. There's several of us that do, because there's a lot of planning that goes into a school. We work on the budget piece, which takes a lot of time. Me and the CFO spend a lot of time together working on the budget that's coming up. The high school principal and the counselor, they're working on schedules. Of course, you have people that will leave and that you're trying to replace. You do a lot of maintenance over the summer, so you're overseeing that. The buildings are kind of empty. I don't really love summers because you get in to do this for the kids, but there's a lot to be done. You sit at your desk a lot more in the summer. During the school year, I can sit at my desk for a certain amount of time, and then I'm like, okay, I got to go see kids, and I got to go be around kids, or I got to go to something, and that makes it more fun. Those summer days are a little longer, but it's definitely needed. There's no way on earth that you could just show up and have school, because there's way too many logistics. I tell my wife all the time, I'm pretty good at logistics because I've done this for so long. But there's a lot to be done in the summer. But I am glad kids are coming back next Wednesday.
That's awesome. Just not being a native Texan, and I hear every year the term convocation. And I had my kids in public school here. Tell us what convocation is, what goes on with convocation. Am I saying it right? Convocation?
Convocation, yeah.
And what is the purpose of that? Because I see tons of enthusiasm about it everywhere.
Sure.
Tell us what that is and why it's important to kick the school year off.
Well, you said it right there. It kicks the school year off. It's the first time that everybody gets back together. You have all of your staff, everybody, bus drivers, custodians, paraprofessionals, everybody. And you get everybody together. And as the superintendent, it's really the only time all year that I see every person in Grandview ISD in one room at one time. Now, this year was the most interesting convocation that I've ever been a part of, because I woke up to the electricity being off in half of the town and all of the schools. So the Lions Club was going to do breakfast, and so my director of operations and I are trying to get a hold of Encore and trying to figure out what are we going to do. And there was a pretty decent little storm that came through Grandview on Sunday morning, and or Sunday evening, first thing Monday morning, and it knocked out all the power. So we sent out messages of, okay, everybody kind of stand down, and then we wound up. This is what's great about a small town. I called the preacher at the First Baptist Church and said, hey, can we use the sanctuary and the fellowship hall? And we met and had convocation started a little bit later, and then the Grandview Bank sponsored our lunch for everybody. And so I felt like the preacher at the Baptist Church because I was up on stage at the Baptist Church giving my beginning of the year talk. This year I talked about kind of what we talked a little bit about earlier, kind of gave a legislative update, and then talked about the narrative of public schools and how I feel about it's kind of negative right now. And we want our theme for the year is we want to tell our story because we do a lot of great things. And in my convocation speech, I included, I get it, we're not perfect, we make mistakes, but we own those, we grow from them, and that's how we get better. But challenging our staff to not just have a great year, but to tell your story so your community can know, hey, these are the great things that happen. And it's not just, hey, the softball team won the state championship, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love that. But the great things that happen every day in the classroom, we say that that's where the magic happens. And it does. But it also happens when that bus driver has that conversation that calms that kindergartner's nerves on the first day of school. That's magic, just like those light bulb moments when those kids get that concept and they go, that's what he's talking about. Okay, I get it now. And that's why we do what we do. And those light bulb moments take place all over the place. And so it's not a pep rally. And some places it kind of is a pep rally. And we've had the band out front and had a pep rally type atmosphere. This year's, like I say, was a little bit different. But it's super important to get everybody together because, like I say, it's the one time of the year that I get to see everybody. And in a small district like ours, you might have a teacher that taught at the junior high campus for 5 years, and then they move and they teach at the high school campus, and they get to go have lunch with their buddy that they hadn't seen in forever. And so it's a small town bonding experience and gets everybody in the right headspace to start the grind of the school year, because I'll be honest, the school year can be a grind at times. Everybody's fired up and excited and full of energy right now, but you get into the dog days of the winter and they're like, when does spring break come? Just like any job. And so it gets everybody pumped up and ready to go.
That's good. There's watching the enthusiasm in all the communities. It's pretty neat to see. Even though I'm not really involved with public schools, it is cool to see the. I come from a large city. I grew up in a large city with where a lot of lines were blurred, and seeing the pageantry and the pride of small towns with just a single high school. Everyone's the
everybody's a zebra.
Yeah, everyone's a zebra, Centurion, whatever. It's
a zebra.
Cool.
Everybody's a zebra.
Everyone's a zebra. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It's neat to see that. I didn't get to grow up with that being from a.
It's special. It really is special. It bonds your community together. I mean, you drive through town, and I mentioned the softball team won the state championship, and you drive through town, and the windows are painted with the girls' names and numbers, and good luck, and then congratulations after they win it, and then you have a celebration, and everybody shows up. I mean, it bonds people together, and it really is special. The special Friday Night Lights, everybody knows about that, but it's not just about the football team. It's about the band and the color guard and the cheerleaders and the little bitty kids that are looking up to those football players with starry eyes, like that Blue Hubbard, one of our football players. In their eyes, he's no different than Dak Prescott. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat. Hopefully your kickoff to the year goes well next Wednesday, and you guys have a safe year as you go forward. But you do have a big event coming up in November here. It looks like you guys have spent a lot of time over the spring. Over the summer, and it looks like you're going to ask your school board to potentially consider whether or not moving forward it's right for Grandview ISD to do a bond. I am asked by lots of different political subdivisions to look at bond stuff. And I look at most of them whether I'm asked or not. And I think, in my opinion, there's three things that are important for the public to consider if they're going to trust a political subdivision with a lot of their money, and has the political subdivision school district, being a political subdivision, have they earned the trust of the community? Have they managed the resources that they've been entrusted with to date, the taxpayer dollars and the schools or the buildings and the support that they've been given? Have they managed all of that responsibly, and are they successful and progressing and trending in a positive direction with what they're tasked with? With a school district, that would be with the I'm going to use the term product, and that's not to diminish it by any means, but basically the outcomes, the student outcomes that are graduating from Grandview ISD are moving on and taking what they learned at Grandview to another school if they move or whatever. I think that Grandview ISD checks all three of those boxes. We're going to get into some of that in a minute, but walk us through just basically what led to Grandview possibly considering a bond, and what process you went through with communicating with the community to kind of narrow it down into what you needed before we get into some of the specifics and talk about, have you earned the trust, which I'm going to go through some measurables here. Have you guys been fiscally responsible, and are you guys successful in your core mission? So walk us through last spring and the summer and how you guys got to this point, if you would.
So I'll go back even a little bit before last spring. And so I started, well, first off, I believe in what you're saying. I agree that you're looking at, are our taxpayers getting a good investment? And then that's something I've always tried to really take into account. When you're talking about running a school district, you're talking about three different groups. You're talking about your students, you're talking about your staff, and you're talking about your taxpayers. And you have to look at all three of those and consider the interests of all three of those when you're making any decision, whether it's a yearly budget or whether you're going to go for a bond. And so I agree with that wholeheartedly. It started a couple of years ago when I started. My charge from the board was, like I told you a while ago, I don't sit there in bed and worry about third grade math scores. I worry about air conditioners, because our air conditioners are older, and unfortunately the costs are exponential for HVAC units now. The other piece is we had some buildings that we thought maybe we could repurpose and bring back into service, because we could do that at a less expensive cost than a new build. And so we got some community. We put out and had community members. We met several times in the spring and loaded them all up on buses and took them to every facility that we have and walked them through it. And the first time we did it, it was pouring down rain. I remember that night. But we walked them through, and I told them, listen, I said, you're not gonna see all the great things that we do in Grandview ISD tonight. You're gonna see some places you go, that's not great. Because unfortunately, some of our facilities are like that. They're older, and they either need some TLC or they need to be replaced. And so we met with them several different times. We talked about, this is how school finance works, because you're in the minority, Greg, of people that understands school finance, unfortunately. And so we worked through that with them, said basically, this is how much money we would have. This is how much money we could generate if we did a bond. This is what sort of impact it would have on our citizens if we asked for these things. And then asked their opinions and had them come talk to the board about, hey, what do you think we should do? And so we came up with the things that we're going to be asking for. So on Monday, our board will be voting up or down for a bond order for $20 million in the November election.
So, and I think it's great that you did that. You invited me to one. I learned a lot about Grandview ISD. I appreciate that. I'm not an easy invite, so thank you for that, for trusting me to.
You made me nervous.
I hope I put some of those concerns
very much
at ease. So let's go down the list of how I approach. And here again, I don't say whether people should vote for or against a bond. I try to look at just some of the stuff across the board. And the first thing is bonds are paid for by the interest and sinking tax rate. Property taxes pay for the debt that bonds create. And to date, from on the Johnson County Central Appraisal District website, they track back to 2018. Every single one of those years, Grandview ISD, and I'm going to throw out some of the districts that have some advantages like Glen Rose with the power plant. So
Sure.
we're gonna compare it as cleanly as possible. But Grandview ISD has consistently had the lowest tax rate among Johnson County. That is fiscally responsible. And when I talk about that, you guys have had the lowest tax rate, your most recent one, and you're getting ready to have to address that with your budget coming up and stuff like that. But the highest school district tax rate in Johnson County right now is $1.28, and Grandview is under $1 at 99 cents is their currently approved tax rate. So you're close to 30 cents below that. Another question that goes into the financial aspect is how much debt have you accumulated, to date? Basically, the highest school district in Johnson County with the most debt is they're carrying $260 million in debt. Now, there's districts that have well over 10,000 kids. You guys are one of the smaller ones. So it's kind of hard to look at total accumulation of debt. However, while interest and sinking pays for the debt, maintenance and operations is required to maintain and operate what is built with the debt. So you have to look at daily attendance to debt ratio. And the highest district in Johnson County, according to Texas Bond Review Board, currently is carrying $83,000 of debt per average daily attended student, where Grandview is at about 10,600, and they're only carrying $14 million in debt. You guys are number one in lowest tax rate, and you're number two in outstanding debt and in a debt per ADA. And even that's a little unfair to say that you're number two. Keene would be number one, but their footprint is a couple of square miles. So that you could even almost make the argument that Grandview is at the top of that. So walk us through how important taxpayer responsibility is and how the conversations go that have led to such obvious, good financial management in regards to how you guys have approached that with your school board and that. And thank you for being a good example and responsible steward of taxpayer money.
It's like I said a while ago, we look at three things. We look at our students. Obviously, we love our students, we love our staff, and we love our taxpayers, and we try to take care of them. Our INS rate is pretty low. We don't have a ton of existing debt, and we're able to keep our INS rate low. But we want to try to keep as much money in the taxpayer bank account as opposed to our bank account. And our fund, we have an INS fund balance, and so the last couple of years, we haven't even taxed at 100% of INS because we wanted to give a little bit of a tax break to our taxpayers and use some local INS funds just so we could keep that INS rate even a little bit lower. That's something that the board, and not just me, this is my fourth year, but for years and years, our board has really wanted to try to keep our taxpayers at the forefront of all the decisions we make. And I think that's why we have such great community support. We passed a TRE a few years ago at over 70%. And I'm not saying I expect this bond to pass, but I expect our community to at least listen to the reasons why that we feel like we can come to them now and go, hey, this is what it's going to cost. This is what we're going to need. This is how we're going to use it. And we have a history of being fiscally responsible that will warrant getting their trust.
And I think that you guys have a track record of that. And you bring up the INS rate and how you've managed the fund balance very well. Very few districts have lowered their interest and sinking rate. And according to Hilltop Securities, since 2021, Grandview ISD has lowered their interest and sinking rate 10 cents. A lot of districts will keep their interest and sinking rate high as they can and add debt to prevent from lowering it. And for whatever goes into that decision making process, it is what it is. But when Grandview has had the opportunity to lower their interest and sinking rate, you guys have lowered it twice between 2021 and 2025. And that's another great sign that you're not just, once you have that tax rate there where it is, it's really, really easy to fall victim to just saying, well, let's just keep it where it is.
Sure.
And the fact that you have a history of reducing that, according to Hilltop Securities, that's a very good sign that you're not here looking to just get as much as you can when you can. So tell us what goes into that kind of decision making.
Well, you're talking about Hilltop Securities, and that's our financial advisor, our financial agent. Our total tax rate has gone down over 55% since 2001. That's a pretty big number. And I'm not saying that we've made huge sacrifices, because we're taking care of our kids and our staff. But that's a win for our community, in my opinion. And so, okay, repeat your question, please.
Just what goes in, like how did the discussions go to where you make the decision to lower the tax rate? And the reason I ask that is, here again, it's really, really easy to leave it high and begin to do that. So it's always, tell us about how you guys got to the conclusion to actually drop that tax rate, the interest and sinking rate.
Really, it's just this is how much it's going to cost to make our bond payment this year, and let's be right around that number. For us, our feeling is there's no reason to keep it up if we don't have to.
That's awesome. And you brought up the fact that you guys have reduced 55% since 2021. And to put that into perspective, everyone's house's prices are different, but for Hilltop Security purposes, they were factoring in a $225,000 home, and that's well over $1,000 savings annually is what that comes down to of less taxes, and that's really, really good. I'm going to throw the city of Grandview a bone here too, because I think tomorrow they're going to actually adopt a no new revenue rate.
Yes.
So you guys have a really good symbiotic community that's really in touch, in tune, and has your finger on the pulse of the taxpayers, and that's pretty rare. And it's really good to see that on all ends, if that makes sense.
I hope it's not considered collusion, but I did have a conversation with the city, and they told me they were probably going to do the no new revenue rate. And we had the conversation of, hey, if you are going for bond, that's good. Well, to me, it's good that you have that symbiotic relationship between the city and the community and the district, because we have the same taxpayers. And I don't want to stick it to the taxpayers if they're sticking it to the taxpayers. That's probably the wrong phrase to use, but you know what I'm saying? We want to try to work together, and I think we have a good working relationship with our city.
I would be disappointed if the school district and the city weren't working together to solve complex problems of growth and the city. I would think that it would be a red flag if you weren't collaboratively working together, to be honest with you.
Very much so.
And so there's no question that fiscally you guys have been very responsible and respectful to the taxpayers. So let's go into the I'm going to use the term product again, but how do academics hash out in Grandview ISD? So according to Texas Assessment Research Portal, which is basically, and here again, there's a million ways to measure a school district's success. And but the bottom line is if you can't master the basics, a lot of the other stuff can't fall into line. And for example, I was in a special operations unit, and we did very complex, very difficult, very high risk, complex things. But we always, every single time, we reverted back to what we called the big five. And that was marksmanship, small unit tactics, casualty care, mobility, and physical fitness. If I couldn't shoot straight and hit what I was shooting at, I have a problem. If I can't function in a small unit because we were small teams, I got a problem. If I can't take care of individuals that are injured and still negotiate those targets, I got a problem. If I can't move fast and agile, I got a problem. And if I'm not physically fit enough to get to where I need to go and do what I need to do, I got a problem. Public education code, their big five are fiscal responsibility. You're operating on taxpayer payer money. We check that box. And then Education Code 4.002 refers to the exemplary performance in the reading and writing of English, exemplary performance in math, exemplary performance in science, and exemplary performance in social studies. And that is the four and only four goals of public education. There's a lot more public education does, and there's a lot more they do great. But if those things are not done well, everything else becomes more difficult. There's lots of data that says at third grade, if a student isn't reading, they are falling behind quick, because at third grade, they begin to read to learn as opposed to learning to read. So how does Grandview ISD do academically? Well, from Texas Assessment Research Portal, which you can compare every ISD in the state, looking back 24, 25, out of 20 categories, Grandview lands in the top two and almost, in 15 out of 20. They're in the top 3 out of 15 or 20 of those measurables, consistently 20% above the state average and region 11 average, which is that's about 77 districts, I think. Number one, and I think this is probably one of the most important, you guys are number one in your end of course science, math, and English, which that's as you're sending students out into the real world to be productive citizens. You guys are leading the county in that. And while you're not number one in U.S. history, you're 95% passing. So we'll give you a little bit of grace. On it. We'll give you a little bit of grace there. But
which makes me upset because I taught history.
You taught history well. Here again, nobody, the STAR test is a hot mess, but here that's no biology teacher lets a biology student choose to take an English or math test in a biology class. It's the devil in that we all have to deal with. It is the measurable, and you guys are doing it very, very well, while making it very, very clear that you don't test, or you don't teach to that test, and you're worried about a lot more important things. But tell us about how you guys are so successful and so head and shoulders above the other local districts, and not to put them down. Everybody has challenges, but you guys significantly consistently are on top of a lot of categories. How do you guys get to that point? What's your silver bullet, as the other district asked you back in the day?
Well, we don't have a silver bullet, but we hold our kids accountable. We're kind of old school. We hold them to high expectations, and I've kind of mentioned people that move into the district. They move there for the schools. I've had conversations with people. Hey, why did you move here? They're like, well, we moved because we went to school. Then let us do our thing. It's kind of tried and true, and that recipe works. Again, we're not perfect, but we don't try to outthink everything. We don't latch on to something the first year it comes out and goes, we're going to try this because it looks cool. We're going to old school teaching. We believe in Sean Kane's Fundamental 5 as our fundamental teaching strategy, and then you let the teachers teach. They're the professionals. You don't want me to go down and try to tell the chemistry teacher how to teach chemistry. I've never had chemistry. I will blow something up. But if I give her the autonomy and I give her the support, she now is going to be creative. She's going to get those kids engaged, and they're going to learn chemistry. Same thing happens. You're talking about third grade reading. I don't go down and teach third grade reading. One of the most eye-opening days of my entire educational career. My first year as a superintendent, I went to school as a second grader for the entire day. My wife dropped me off in the drop-off line. I went and sat in line with my classmates. I kind of looked like Will Ferrell in whatever that movie was, or Adam Sandler, or whatever that movie was, because I'm a 6 foot tall man, around all these kids. And the entire day I did everything they did. But when it came time to work on reading. I was a second grader, and they used phonics. Well, I didn't learn how to read by phonics. It was like hieroglyphics to me. But those kids were like, "Oh, Mr. Basham, you want to do this? Oh, you do this," and they owned their learning. And when you can get kids engaged in ownership of their own learning, the sky is the limit. And that really is where the magic happens, when they take that ownership. I went the whole day, and it was incredible because I didn't come from an elementary background. I was the prototypical history teacher coach, coached PE every once in a while, and those sort of things. I had not been around elementary, and that was one of the reasons I did it, because I wanted to see what elementary teachers were doing. And they're rock stars. The music teacher, she's Mick Jagger. I mean, she's I don't know how old she is, but I'll just use the term seasoned.
Toe jam football just crossed my mind.
Yeah. And so the music teacher, she's just talking. All of a sudden, the music comes on, and she literally starts dancing like Mick Jagger. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this lady's, we're going to have to, there's going to be workman's comp because she's going to break a hip. And it's not that way at all. She's awesome. I mean, awesome. And I was just blown away by the quality of teaching. And it's because I don't go down there and tell her how to do her job, because I don't know how to do her job. I support her, get her the tools that she needs, and then she gets those kids bought in. And that's our silver bullet.
And I think another silver bullet here that's really good. And before we get into the bond specifics here, your school board establishes goals, and one of their goals, it involves third grade reading, and we're going to talk about that. And basically, the state puts out what they feel goals should be, and their goal is that 44% of third graders should hit the meets or above category in reading. And you guys, your goal is about 20 percentage points higher. That's your goal, and you guys are right at meeting your goals. Some you're much higher, some you're right there, and some you're a little bit lower. But setting goal, tell me the importance of why you're not looking at the minimum and resting your laurels on there, and why you feel it's important, and why the school board feels it's important to set standards higher than the minimum and shoot for a much higher bar, because having these goals with the outcomes you have, obviously something's working. So tell us how important that is to the success of Grandview ISD before we get into the specifics of this bond here.
We hold ourselves to a very high standard, and we set high goals so that can be what we shoot for. If we set a low goal and we get it, are we going to really be pushing ourselves? Are we really going to be pushing our students? Are they going to be pushing themselves? I'll be honest, I don't even know what the state standard is. I don't care about what the state standard is. I care about what's the best that we can do for our students in Grandview ISD, because those are our kids, and we want to try to give them the best possible education that we can, and that means pushing them. It means stretching them. It means them putting out as much effort as they possibly can. And again, our community has given us the support to be able to do that for a very long time. But like I say, Region 11 average or state average, we don't even take those things into account. We hold ourselves to our own standard.
Well, it's good because the state standards and Region 11 standards are so far behind you probably wouldn't see them anyway. So it's good to see that. So the elephant in the room is November. You guys are gonna ask for a bond, and I think you said about $20 million, a very, very frugal, humble amount of money. It's going to cost the taxpayers some money. There's no doubt about that. Tell us about getting the biggest bang for your buck, and how you guys approach, going from, big, expansive, new, fancy facilities, how you guys are considering, repurposing stuff, multi-use things, and continuing to be very responsible stewards of taxpayer money.
So I'm not going to go completely into school finance, but everybody operates within a budget, and they have whatever they can afford for their personal mortgage based on their income. Newsflash, I can't go buy a $10 million house. My wife and I don't have that kind of income to get that kind of credit to buy a $10 million house. In school terms, it's bond capacity based on your taxable values. And if you drive through Grandview, there's not a ton of taxable value. We're what's called a rooftop district. And unfortunately, rooftops don't generate a ton of income for school districts. however you feel about that, that's one way or the other. That's just the system that we work in, and that may be a conversation for another day. But we don't have a whole lot of bond capacity because we don't have a whole lot of taxable value. So we've got to use our dollars wisely. If a while ago I talked about growth being the thing that kind of scares me down the line, just the unknown. If we're going to grow and we're going to run out of room in our elementary, in the spring of 24, we hired a demographic company to come in and do a study, and they projected that eventually we would run out of room in the elementary in probably 28-29. School year 28-29. Our attendance actually stayed pretty flat for a while, and that number has probably expanded out to 29-30 maybe. But our enrollment this year looks to be, now we haven't started yet, but it looks to be way up. And so we're probably back onto that path. But having a limited bond capacity, if we just went out and went, you know what, we're going to go build an intermediate school at ballpark of $25-30 million, that would eat up all of the potential money that we had. We wouldn't be able to do any of the other capital improvements that we need to. We have some pretty severe foundation issues at our high school that we've been working on for over a decade to try to fix. We've tried polyurethane. We've tried different methods to try to do it. But now we're to the point that it's probably going to be ballpark of $1 million to get the foundation fixed. We've got close to 100 air conditioners that need to be replaced that are near end of life, and some of them that are technically end of life, but still they're being asked to give us a little more. And so we went out and got bids for that, and we're ballpark of $6 million. We're fortunate in a situation that our director of operations used to be the director of operations in Stephenville and Cedar Hill and Burleson, and has got about 30 years of experience and has done these type of projects before. And we will probably be able to do replace those air conditioners in-house for a little under $3 million instead of going out and doing turnkey and just going, that's the easiest way to do it. Right? It's things like that we feel like we're being a good steward of the taxpayer dollar. And it'll be a little more work on our end. It might take just a little bit longer, but it will save a significant amount of money. A, that's the taxpayers' money, and B, we don't have a ton of it to spend. The other piece of it is we've got some buildings that we feel like we could bring back into service. We have, and I call it the old gym building. Some people call it the old high school building. It's an A-frame building built in the early 50s. My dad actually went to high school there. I went to junior high there, and it's basically sitting empty. We have a community swap shop where people can bring clothes and people can come pick those, can come get clothes if they need, and it is a really great community service. I've talked to the city about, hey, if we bring this building back into service, we don't want to get rid of the swap shop because it's not just Grandview ISD folks that use this. And so we're working together to try to find a place that we can still have the swap shop, probably still on Grandview ISD campus, but not necessarily, but it won't be in that building. And so we can use that building for administrative spaces, classroom spaces, between that building and the current administration building, which used to be an intermediate building, a standalone intermediate model. It has what's called the multi-purpose room, and it's just a huge room that was built for expansion, and we're basically going to fill it in by just putting in walls and classrooms. If we we get rid of the multi-purpose room, take that into a classroom space, and we bring the old building back into service, we can get almost as many rooms, classroom spaces, as we have in our existing junior high, and go to a intermediate junior high model. We can do that a lot more inexpensively than we would if we just went and built one intermediate building. So those are the big things that we want to do. The other two things that we feel like we need to do are we need to expand our ag mechanics shop area. We have a very robust ag mechanics shop area, a real program, but we're having to turn kids away just because our shop is too small to be able to do A, the project size, and B, to have the number of welding stations to be able to have more kids in the program. So we would like to expand that. And then we would like to add on to our softball stadium and have a softball clubhouse and girls weight room. And I know that sounds, ooh, weight room, that's going to be big and fancy. It's not. It'll be nice, but it's literally just basically about the size of a metal. If you've got a metal barn at your house, that's about the size that it is. It'll have some garage doors and a fan in it. It is not a Taj Mahal with indoor turf or anything like that. It's just a place for them to work out and a place for them to change clothes. And so we feel like those are all needs for our district. And we feel like we can do all of that for $20 million, which it's a pretty big bang for your buck, honestly, in my opinion, having been around and seen a lot of other capital projects for other districts. It's not like we're asking for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars because we can't afford that, right? That's not how the system works. But we do feel like asking the community for these things sets us up to absorb growth as it comes, whenever it gets here, and to be able to provide good services for the students that we have.
And just to go back to some of the projects you're doing, and talking to lots of people in different communities about when they call bonds and how to look at what a school district should put in a bond and not. A lot of times you hear about stuff like air conditioning repairs, foundation repairs, things that are like repairing stuff. You hear about, wait a minute, time out. We have a maintenance and operations budget. Why are these not being maintained and operated? But what people need to take from this is you guys have been maintaining the foundation, you have been maintaining the air conditionings, and you have tried to do unique things to solve these problems. But the bottom line is they are capital improvements. And especially with the air conditioners, you're not just pushing the easy button about, hey, carrier, or hey, train, just come in here and dump a bunch of new ACs on here. You're actually having your maintenance staff do a lot of the labor involved with this. Am I understanding that correctly? Because that's what a lot of friction point is in other communities with stuff is about what about maintaining and operating this stuff? Why are they not doing that? So it sounds like you guys have really exhausted all resources with this stuff. Is it fair to say that?
Very, very much so. We've gotten all the life that we can out of those air conditioners, and by having folks we're fortunate by having folks on staff that have experience in replacing these big, like I say, our director of operations, having come from a big district, he has the experience and that has done this exact project before. That we can do it at a vastly more inexpensive method than just turnnkeying it to somebody.
It's really good to hear the creativity that you guys are coming up with, and then talking about repurposing a lot of space. Bottom line is building from bottom up a school is very, very expensive.
Very.
Really to do that, but it's easy button to do that, and there's lots of companies that want to come in and build schools.
Well, new build is about $450 plus per square foot, and renovation is $250-ish per square foot. And it makes sense. Since I started this project, when it was just me walking around our buildings going, I wonder if we could do this with this building, I was like, it makes sense to be able to go to our community and go, we're going to use all the spaces that we have before we ask you to build something new. It really doesn't make any sense to me. This is Kirby, to go build a new building if we've got spaces that we can use. That doesn't make fiscal sense. It doesn't make sense because down the road we may need to put a building somewhere else, and I just think it makes sense for us to be able to use the spaces that we have before we ask our community to go build something new. And we're not going to, even if we go build something, I couldn't see us building a Taj Mahal. That's just not what we're about.
You don't want the Chick-fil-A that was in Prosper. You brought up Prosper. Don't they have a Chick-fil-A in there?
I think they do. I think they do. But I think for us,
that might be real popular. That might help you with your.
The people that we've spoken with about renovating the old gym building or the old high school building, their eyes light up. And I tell them, here's my vision for that building. And the vision that I've talked to our committees about is not every, but a lot of restaurants that you go into now, they've got an old exterior, and they've got, they're trying to make it look old. Every burger joint that you go into, that you sit down at, but they look really cool inside with high ceilings and exposed ventilations and exposed brick, kind of like this in your studio. And everybody's like, oh, that would be awesome. That's actually a pretty inexpensive way to do it. And I'm like, if we can do that and create a learning space for our kids that they're going to enjoy, that our teachers are going to be proud of, and that's a pretty inexpensive way of doing it, well, why wouldn't we? And we've got a gym there in that building that we would like to convert to a sport court instead of a wood floor. Wood floors are very expensive, and B, very expensive to maintain. And we don't really use that floor a ton. Our color guard uses it, and because they use the rifles and the sabers. And if you know anything about those rifles or sabers, they're heavy, and the wood floors don't love those, because our girls are awesome, but when they're learning, they will tend to drop them from time to time. And so if we had a sport court, it would help with that. The other piece is our community, our GYA, the Grandview Youth Association, they use that gym almost nightly because they're hosting volleyball practices and basketball practices and those sort of things. So if we can put a sport court in there, that helps with the GYA practices and our color guard practices, and we're getting it's not as expensive, and we're getting a better use out of that building.
And you're allowing the community to
100%.
use it too, which is a great thing. I know Keene is considering a bond, and a lot of homeschool groups and stuff that use their facilities are concerned that they're going to lose that space, which they're not, which is great.
Sure.
I mean, I look forward to in the future. I'm going to talk what Keene's plans are, because they're very creative too.
Yes, sir. Dr. Stevens and I talk a lot.
He's a great superintendent. I enjoy speaking with him. And so you're also expanding this ag mechanics thing. So being not from Texas, ag is a foreign language to me. And a lot of people not from Texas, when they hear things like ag, they think of like they don't really look at it as a potential career thing. It's more of like the show lane. Tell us about the ag mechanic program and how that's going to potentially benefit students as they graduate, and the importance of that to a community like Grandview and the students.
So they graduate with an industry-based certification so when they if they're wanting to go get a welding job, they can do so. They've already got a leg up on the competition. And so we've got a very robust program with lots of kids wanting to do that. Yes, we are very competitive when it comes to ag welding. We've built some unbelievably impressive projects over the years. We had a boy build a 40-foot gooseneck trailer 2 or 3 years ago, and it looks like you'd have gone to Big Tex and bought. And it was nicer than that. No offense to Big Tex, but it was unbelievable. Last year we had 2 girls that built Santa Maria grill with a smoker on it, had custom wheels. They had a sponsor for the materials. The trailer was valued at over $16,000, and they used a formula they learned in their calculus class to work the winch on the Santa Maria grill piece.
Now, hold on here. Texas is a brisket country. Where are people bringing little Santa Maria grills for tri-tip to Grandview?
I don't know.
Explain how that.
I can tell you this.
Tri-tip fan?
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. Boy, you need to learn how to cook it.
It's okay, but I do like brisket.
Okay, I'll have a friend I'll introduce you to about tri-tip. But anyways, Santa Maria Grill. I'm being from California. California's tri-tip country, and they couldn't cook a brisket to save their lives. But Texas definitely has some good briskets. So.
And the projects they build they're mind blowing. I walk down there and go, seriously, a high school kid just built this. And it blows my mind. And when you go to the county show, almost annually, if you go on to the county show sale on Saturday, a third of the sale slots will be kids from Grandview ISD. They might not all be from Grandview FFA. Some of them might be from Grandview 4-H, but about a third of those are going to be from Grandview ISD. And I'm incredibly proud of that.
That's awesome, and the commissioner out there too. He's a big supporter of the ag program. I know that, and that's awesome to see that here again. That symbiotic relationship with the community, and I think another good thing about you getting ready to ask your school board to consider this bond is you're choosing to allow a true grassroots local voices communicate with the community about the bond and the benefits to Grandview ISD and why it's important, why it's needed. You're not reaching out to a big public relations firm that focuses on this type of stuff. You're not spending taxpayer money to have somebody else market Grandview ISD, and you're also those community members, you're encouraging them to not allow people who may profit from this to donate to the marketing of this. Explain to us why it's important that you're choosing not to go down those roads, which are pretty much easy button. It's not hard to spend a lot of money to oversaturate a message. So you're choosing a more difficult path. My opinion, a more responsible path and a more grassroots path. But walk us through why you feel it's important to have that local tone, local messaging involved with educating the community on why this bond's important.
I had a conversation. It was a Zoom meeting with a PR firm. Oh, I'm going to say 6 months, a year ago, when we were talking about this, because this is my first bond. I didn't know what I was doing, and the lady, very nice lady, she told me about their service, and I said, okay, that sounds great. I said, well, the superintendent's going to ask the question. She said, how much? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, how many students do you have? I said, we have 1,400. She said, it wouldn't be bad. It'd be about 70,000. And I almost fell out of my chair. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. We did a TRE a few years ago, and we hired a consultant that helped us with the math piece, but get the word out was me and our director of communications, who is just really a former English and Spanish teacher, she also doubles as our instructional technologist. She can run a website better than me, basically, and she writes better than me. But it's just us. I think I had 17 meetings when we did the TRE community meetings. If there were two or more gathered, Kirby was there. And that's what it'll be now. There will be some people in our community that we're on the facility committee that will probably go to these meetings with me as well. Probably not all of them, but there, and can probably give, hey, we think this is why they should do it, because I can just give information. Sure. And I'm fine with that, because I'm not naive. I understand that people are going to have hard questions, and I'm okay with hard questions. But I don't think that it's in our best interest to hire a PR firm to run it and press the easy button, as you say. I don't think it's in our best interest to have people that are going to potentially make money on the back end of it, paying for it up front. I just don't think that's how we operate in Grandview. I don't think that's the best thing for our community. And I think our community has shown that they support the district, and that we have shown that we've earned the community's trust. So that I just don't think those things are necessary. And I'm not going to say waste. I don't want to waste the taxpayers' dollars. I just think we can do it this way. And it's different. I'll tell you that. I mean, it'd be way easier for me. I'd get to spend a whole lot more time and watch the Rangers playoff push if I wasn't doing these things. I just think that's the best way to do it for us and for me.
Well, I think it's appreciated. I think that your community will appreciate it. I think that with here again, I know I touched earlier on that, how impressed I am with just the coolness of the local community identity involved with schools. That's not how I was raised. That's not where I'm from. That's not what I'm used to. It's not my norm. And I think that there's more, communities are more than capable to have those conversations in their church groups, in their Bible studies, at the local cafes, in the local grocery stores. And the bottom line is the realistic truth, unfortunately, across the board, is voter participation is never good in just about anything. And the bottom line is the more local buy-in, the more local support, the more local familiarity you have and comfort with any time you're looking at anything that's going to affect the taxpayers over a long period of time, the easier it is to navigate that. I think that Grandview has really done a good job with their finances and their academic measurables. They're just undeniable. I'm gonna before we close out here, I'm gonna wish you luck in this. I really, really hope that and I'm going to talk to the citizens of Grandview here. Get information from as many people as you can, and look at all the data and all the measurables, and go and learn about Grandview ISD if you don't have kids in there and you're not familiar with it, and speak with Superintendent Basham and the local school board, and try to make your own determination and whether this should be supported or not. And I think that all of those questions are answered with just a little bit of effort in reaching out and trying to learn a little bit about it, and evaluate if they've earned your trust, if they've been fiscally responsible, if they're succeeding in their core mission to turn out a good, prepared student, prepared for life, to be a productive member, to lead Johnson County, possibly Grandview, and Texas and beyond moving forward. I think that's easy for people to do, easier in a small, cool community like Grandview. But anything that you want to say to the Grandview community and anybody that is going to be asked to consider to this bond, Superintendent?
Yeah, I would just say if you have any questions, ask us. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to meet with me. And if you can't make it to a meeting, shoot me an email, give me a call. I will 100% get back to anybody that reaches out to me. I think I mentioned it earlier. I love to talk about two things. I love to talk about me, and I love to talk about Grandview ISD. I'm not going to tell you that we're perfect, but we do try to be a good steward of the taxpayer dollar. I do feel like that we have earned the trust of the community of Grandview to trust us with these dollars. And unfortunately, I wish it wasn't going to be expensive and it wasn't going to be a tax increase, but it is. But I think that we have earned the right to at least ask the question. And if it doesn't work out, then we will reconnoiter and figure out how to move forward and do what's best for our students.
And I hope that in the unfortunate event it doesn't pass, that I hope the individuals that chose to vote against it bring ideas to you and bring solutions, because the bottom line is the unfortunate dynamic of school funding and how it works is this is the mechanism to do complex capital projects. So this is the world we live in. There's not 50 other solutions, and this is just the one that a district chooses. It is the mechanism to do this. So if anybody is going to decide not to do this, think about and brainstorm solutions to bring to the district to solve some of these problems moving forward. I think that that's fair, and at the same time, seriously look at how they've managed this stuff. And Superintendent, we really appreciate you trusting us to have a long form discussion. Q&As are always very repetitive, and it's the same thing over and over again. And anything that we can do for you, if you want to come back on in the future, discuss how that campaign's moving forward regarding any questions that you're getting answered consistently,
sure,
that aren't addressed, and you want to get that out, we'd be more than happy to have you back on. So for Texas Transparency Project, thank you. Good luck to a safe and productive school year, and future continued zebra success.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
Enjoyed it very much.
We are Texas Transparency Project, where transparency perpetuates accountability. We are your source for local and state issues that affect each and every one of us, from our state legislature to the county commissioner's court, to school districts and city councils. Their actions affect all of us. Locally, rural farms are transitioning into suburban neighborhoods. Texas is growing. Property taxes are increasing. The future of Texas is being shaped. We offer data-driven and sourced information so you have the totality of information. Get involved, stay informed, and work with your neighbors. We are the Texas Transparency Project, where transparency perpetuates